live audio wrestling.
And let's go, we're now smoking with the best.
Welcome back. 10 About Trivia still to come. Going to talk to DDP about the resurrection of Jake the Snake, and we'll chat about that as well. And along with that, the Q&A, of course, as well. But right now, it's just after midnight. That means it is Meltzer time here on The Law. Dave Meltzer, how are you?
I'm fine. How are you?
I'm doing very well. I want to start off because we are fine.
Yeah,
we are fine.
Nobody else on the WWE roster is.
You know who's not fine? Sheamus, Del Rio, Barrett, Rollins, Cena, Orton, Nikki Bella, Cesaro, Kidd, Daniel Bryan, Ty Dillinger, and Hideo Itami. They're all not fine.
Oh,
and
my God.
Exactly.
Isn't that amazing?
That's a crazy
It's
list. Yeah.
So, Dave, I just wanted to start off.
You could put on a better card with the people that are out than with the people that are in.
Oh, man.
A much better card if you really look at it.
Yep.
So, do you believe that there is anything to this, or is this simply a string of bad luck?
It's both. It's too much. It's too much to where you just say, "Oh well, it's just business." But even with business, it's like remember, like I think the big thing was like in 2000, I think it was 2014 with UFC when they had all those injuries.
Yeah.
Yep.
It was like it was bad luck. But it was also a wake-up call in the sense that, they had to, kind of teach guys not to train so hard. And in this one, I think that it's, a combination of whether it's training too hard, whether it's wrestling too hard, too many shows. I don't know what it is, but it's clearly there's clearly there's whatever they're doing. It's breaking people down. Too many of them. I mean, there's always going to be some guys hurt.
Well,
but there's too many at one time.
I think one of the things, Dave, I mean, really, even if you look back to what it was like in the 80s, is that the style in the ring now, it's so much more intense. Like, I mean, I'm not surprised at all these guys, especially stuff like, shoulder injuries and knees and things like that, because the style now is so demanding. I mean, look, a common move is to give a guy a power bomb on the ring apron. Like,
okay, but hold on, though, because if you look at the Attitude Era, I mean, things got very hardcore, and there was a higher expectation of the level of work that was associated for being in the ring. So I don't necessarily see a difference between then and now.
I do see a difference.
I'll
tell you what it is. There's longer there's longer matches on television, and those matches are now twice a week. So if you're a main eventer, you're doing like a 15-minute match on TV, and you're doing your 15, 20-minute match at the arenas, and you're doing them constantly. And your TV matches are kind of under the microscope in the sense that, at a house show you can get by with, a good match and it's fine and everyone's happy. On TV, the expectations are very high. You didn't have attempts at regular 3.5-star matches, so to speak, on television a couple of times a week like a Cena or a Rollins or a Randy Orton. I'm not saying they always do it, but the attempt is there because they're in there for a long period of time. Before, a lot of the TV matches were a lot shorter. I think that's the difference.
So how do you fix that, in your opinion? Is it a matter of making the matches shorter and putting more matches on the card, or what would you say is the solution here?
That's something to think about, is making the matches shorter and having more on the card. Another is more time off, in the sense that not everyone on the show has to wrestle on every single show,
right,
so to speak. I mean, it's like, granted, Cena was generally only wrestling on, one TV a week, but he was also wrestling on 3 house shows most weeks. So I think there's the thing, perhaps what they do in Japan, not that Japan is a panacea, but with Japan, you have those killer matches, but you really only have 1 or 2 of them a month, and the rest of the time you're in
big
matches.
Tags,
where you're protected more and you don't have to do as much. And granted, I mean, those guys get hurt too, but they're not getting hurt as much as our guys now.
I think what they need to do, Dave, is come up with some kind of plan where they can implement some sort of rotation with certain players, where maybe some guy does disappear for a month or 2 months just to heal, and other guys can take the ball and then that way we're not always seeing the same faces all the time too.
Well, the other thing too is they have so many guys, if you include the developmental. It feels like they don't have depth, but really when it comes to numbers, they do have depth. But they need to get more guys in the game, in the sense that so many of the guys are, like the guys in developmental. There's 10 guys in developmental that could come up to the main roster and be players on it. But now with the NXT thing, it's kind of like, well, we have to protect NXT, and that hurts too. But I mean, it's like you don't really need to rely on the same guys. You could get more guys in the mix. And I think that maybe you do that, and then you give guys more time off. Maybe that's part of the answer.
Let's shift focus over to Fastlane. We had the main event announced, and of course we have 3 baby faces competing for the title shot at WrestleMania. So that's, going to go towards Roman Reigns. Of course, we can see that. It looks like Brock Lesnar is programmed with Bray Wyatt. Where do you see Dean Ambrose falling into the mix there at WrestleMania, though?
Because the Owens thing pretty much feels like it's run its course. So I don't know, maybe Jericho. That just feels like it's a possibility. Maybe AJ Styles. For
the IC title, I would guess, because he's still walking around with it, even though he's not really focusing on it at the moment.
No.
Well, but after Fastlane, he probably will be again.
Right. And I'm assuming he's thrown in there and taking the pin.
That's what that would be my guess. That'd be my guess. The only reason he's really even, there's no other reason for him to really be in the match. Honestly, is you don't want to beat Lesnar. I think that's your answer.
Yeah, absolutely. Has there been any talk of him slowly turning heel, maybe coming out of this 3-way match? Because I think it's got to happen eventually.
I always predict it because I think that it's money. But no one's actually said it to me.
Right.
But there's been there's been hints on TV because by making him so close for months. So I don't think he should until well after WrestleMania, but I do think he should at that point.
Right.
Because again, Roman Reigns, if Roman Reigns beats Triple H for the title, going back and going out there with Big Show or Bray Wyatt or Sheamus, he'll have one of those runs that we could talk about, years later.
Yeah.
God, they spent all that time making him champion, and then he sucked as champion.
Yeah.
If you put him at least with Ambrose,
right,
he'll have better matches, and they'll be fresh matches.
No, that's very true. One of the other things, too, for Mania, Dave, we're wondering still Undertaker. Have you heard anything about the plans for Taker at this point?
I have heard nothing past, the John Cena thing, but, is he going to be ready?
Yeah.
I would never say it's not a possibility, but you still got to think the odds are against it. But if it's not John Cena, Sheamus, I don't know. I don't know.
There was some talk of Braun Strowman. Have you heard anything that way with him and Taker?
Yeah. Okay. So this is what because that's an obvious one. The only thing I was told is that as of a week ago, that's a for sure no.
Good.
Yeah, because that was going to look like
the feeling was that it wouldn't be a good match. Undertaker probably wouldn't be thrilled with the idea of the match, and
it's like Giant Gonzalez all over again, Dave. I think if they do that one,
right? But he's in his 50s, so it's not.
Yeah, exactly. It's not 20. Whatever how long that match was, 10, 15 years ago.
Yeah. So it's not. Yeah. So Sheamus would be like a stopgap. That's the problem. It's like I don't think anybody would really be interested.
No.
But it's just kind of a match. It would have been better with Sting, but Sting's not. Sting's not going to happen.
Yeah,
and
which is unfortunate.
That is unfortunate. Yeah. So I guess it's pray for Cena.
Let's flip over to TNA. Actually, a relatively good program and impact with the Hardys. A good start to it this week. Reby Sky is really great on television. Behind the scenes, even more interesting, though. We had a fight break out between Awesome Kong and Reby Sky. Awesome Kong has been sent home. What are the details on this?
Yeah, they. I guess the two of them have had problems for years. They've each said things, and the other remembers them, and then they said things back. And so the last couple of times Reby Sky has been at the shows, she's dressed elsewhere. I don't know if Matt's had his own dressing room for the family or what, but anyway, this time when they were in Manchester, she was put in the women's dressing room, and Kong, threw her bags out and threw whatever bags her son has as well. Just threw the bags out. So that turned into a big argument, and as you can imagine. And at that point, after words were exchanged, Kong went after her and threw her against the wall.
Whoa!
And started choking her. There were marks around her neck, and she did it in front of the son, which is just a freaking disaster. That's the bad. It's bad anyway, but just doing it in front of the son,
Whoa.
I just think is just terrible. So they had no choice but to send her home. I don't know how you bring her back. I think that's a lapse of judgment that's awfully bad.
And it's not the first time that we've run into this with Awesome Kong, with the Bubba the Love Sponge thing. And along with that, you look at the value of her to the company. It's not what it used to be due to her back injuries.
Agreed. Agreed. And the women's division is honest to God, their women's division
Garbage.
is terrible.
Yeah,
Just horrible.
And it's not like losing Kong makes it better, but they need to invest in some wrestlers now because Kong, it's Gail Kim and what? I mean, the Taryn Terrell loss was a big one.
Yeah.
Now the Dollhouse just doesn't really mean anything.
No.
It's a bunch of green girls. So I mean, it looks like they're going with Gail Kim and Maria as like the big program now.
Oof, that's not good. Thoughts on Lucha Underground? We saw episode 1 of season 2 this week.
It was a really good episode. The Phoenix and Cuerno match was tremendous. That's fantastic. So,
How did you feel about that opening vignette, Dave, with Vampiro in the mental institution and then Stryker picking him up and everything?
It from a production standpoint, it was tremendous.
Yeah.
Okay. Now that the show is over, I have no idea why they did it because it's like...
exactly, because Vampiro he was a completely different character at the commentary booth.
He was just Vampiro at the commentary booth, and he wasn't nuts, and I don't know that there's anything that happens. Maybe there's something that this relates to, but I mean,
it was weird.
It's like it was well acted, and it felt. But again, we'll give it time to see if it makes sense later. But right now, I don't understand it.
One of the things we were talking about earlier that we still struggle with, Dave, is the male on female violence here.
Yeah.
I don't understand that either. In the sense that it's. I mean, like to do it every now and then because there's an angle that builds it up or something like that. And if it fits, I can get it. But they do it like for the sake of they feel like they need to do it constantly.
Yeah.
In which case it means nothing, and it just looks bad. And again, like that, the Mil Muertes match with Ivelisse, it really wasn't like a terrible match, but you're watching it going like this is a world championship match. It's a joke, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So it's like that aspect. I'm when I watched it that way, it's like. Why did she win? Because she's the one that everyone's going to watch the match and go, it's a complete joke. And even though they gave her a hope spot and everything, it looked terrible. It's one thing like TNA did some men versus women matches. They did Jesse Goddard's against Kong, but they were about the same size. They had Gail Kim and Tigre Uno, but Tigre Uno is really small. But this is like a 260-pound guy against like 130-pound woman, and it's just you look at it and you just go like this is just it doesn't work. That's all I can say. Even though I won't knock the way it was put together wasn't too bad, and the crowd didn't mind it. But I think like as a viewer watching at home, I think that like some people will like it, but most people will look at it as in a very different way. And even if let's say 20% are really negative and it turns them off, it's like you don't need that. And it's not like they're out there having like this great match and you just go like this match is so freaking great that we're gonna change the business with this great match. It was again of those 3 people that could have been in the match. She had the weakest match of the 3, and she had the stupidest world title match of the 3. So what did you accomplish other than, hey, we did men versus women, we're ahead of the curve? No, you're not ahead of the curve.
Yeah.
You don't realize that you're completely out of the curve when you do stuff like that.
One more question before we go, Dave. We talk about John Cena's recuperative powers on this show all the time, but flipping over to UFC, Cain Velasquez is going and getting back surgery, but apparently he's supposed to recover in, 2 weeks?
4 weeks.
4 weeks after getting back surgery. How is that
I know
even
it's
possible?
like Dana White said that, and I was like, does he mean 4 months? And then I checked with the camp, and they said they didn't tell me 4 weeks, but they told me like it'll be pretty quick. So I guess it's minor back surgery. I hope I hope it cures the problem. But that makes that heavyweight division really interesting because we got with Ben Rothwell winning and everything.
Yeah.
There's 4 different contenders. There's Ben Rothwell, Stipe Miocic, Kane, and Overeem.
Mm-hmm. If Overeem no longer under contract.
What?
Overeem's not under contract at the moment, right?
But he's not. But he's still they're gonna. I'm guessing they're going to match whatever offer is out there. They have the right to match any offer.
Right, that makes sense. All right, Dave, we've got to say goodbye for this week, but The Observer, what is coming up?
Hopefully a story on Archie Gouldy, if not next week, a big story. I've talked to enough people and everything, just a question of how much time it takes to put it all together. And, in coverage of Nakamura's last match with New Japan.
Oh, yes.
Whatever happens on WWE this week, Lucha Underground from today. there is no shortage of stuff. That's for sure.
All righty, good stuff. And look forward